So guys, welcome to the interview for today. We have Fabiano Latham with us, and I've got it right twice in a row. Hi Fabiano, how you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, good. Tell
You
us
can
what...
call me you can call me Fabs, by the way. Normally it helps.
Fabs? That's going to
Yeah.
be a lot quicker for me.
Yeah. Nice.
Cool, so Fabs, tell me why you're here. Tell our audience why you are here to talk to us today.
I'm here. Thank you for having me.
You're
To
welcome.
share my thoughts on this concept, which I kind of came up with, which is essentially all about how being more adventurous, in particular in hanging out in nature and things, can help bartenders sort of relieve stress and sort of prevent symptoms of burnout, but also, like enhance creativity and things like that.
Awesome. So, Adventurivity, that's the word,
Nice.
right?
Yeah.
Adventurivity. It's a combination of adventure and creativity.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. How did you come up with the concept? How did you? I mean, obviously you smashed two words together. That's kind of how that word came from. But what was
Yeah.
it that made you think, right, these are two things that we need to really create and connect together?
Well, I work for an Icelandic vodka brand, right? So Rekya Vodka, and in
Mm-hmm.
in Iceland, they do this whole mashup word things to make new words because they're very proud of their like we are Vikings. We don't want to change the language. We can't copy an English word. So, for example, the word for computer, here is one here, is a combination of the word number and witch, which I quite like. And you've
Nice.
got things like jellyfish is sea and glitter and all these kind of things. So I was like, I just like mashing up words anyway because it sounds funny. But adventure and creativity work quite well. And it's, yeah, so it basically, it all stemmed from myself, my own experiences, bartending for like 10 years before I started this job about 2 years ago. Um, and obviously it's great. It's like the most funnest job ever. However, it's extremely demanding creatively, and it doesn't necessarily give you the right. It's not the most creatively nimbling environment. Excuse my words. Obviously to do with all like the late nights, too much booze, particularly when you have to start. Too many hours. You kind of feel rinsed by your bosses sometimes. And however, we've always got to be at the top of our game, to be like noticed, particularly since things like Instagram and all this crap like blew up and you see what someone's doing in Japan and you're like, oh, well, I wish I thought of that first, kind of thing. And so I was trying to, well, it happened by accident actually. I went on a foraging trip, which I know lots of bartenders have done now. And I remember feeling particularly amazing afterwards, not just because we were drinking in the forest and things, but I think just being in that environment and particularly being outside of my usual environment, so like in a basement bar kind of thing where I was at the time, I felt really creatively inspired, and I got back to work and I was completely reinvigorated. Like, yes, I can do this, and it like ignited a spark again. So I think being bartenders, we're always, particularly now, we always question the things that we do. Before it's like use lemon juice, and you're like, oh, okay, and now there's all sorts of different options you can do, and different ways of making drinks and everything. So I wanted to get to the bottom of why I felt good after that, to understand the science of it so that I could communicate it to other bartenders and use my job at the minute, which is quite, I get to meet a lot of bartenders, and I thought it'd be quite nice to share it with them and
Awesome.
you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's have a quick chat about your kind of journey then, this basement bar and the bars that you kind of worked in the past, a little bit of your journey to becoming where you are today. Because it's one of those really interesting things as well for our listeners is, I know there's a lot of bartenders out there that aspire to work with brands and work in a position like yours. So what was your kind of path through bartending? Give us your issue one origin story of your comic book.
Cool. I fell into it, as I think a lot of people do. Well, around those times, anyway. I sound like I'm really old. I'm not. Just about 10 years ago. Oh my day. I was studying to be a professional musician, and then I realised this is difficult. So I started working. I was in Brighton at the time, and I was working in this dirty jazz bar, and it was horrendous. I actually got fired on New Year's Eve. Story for another day. Anyway, and I came back to London and I got a job as a bartender because I was like, I enjoy this. I think I'm good at talking to people and giving, making sure that their night is great. And so I started working in there. I got offered an opportunity which was way above my level of experience in a bar called Smoke Bar in Tooting. And I think the owner, a guy called Paul, who was great, I think he just saw my raw enthusiasm. I thought, like, he's a bit crap, but I can make him good, hopefully. Yeah. So I was there for about 2 years, and then I opened a bar called Monero's in East London, which was completely different kettle of fish. It was like open till 5 a.m. in a basement in like near Shoreditch in London, and it was just a complete party for about 3 years. And that's where I was really struggling with the whole nightlife thing. I was loving it, but I was kind of struggling at the same time. But once you get into those kind of that kind of routine of the dark, it's quite hard to get out. But again, luckily, I was offered an opportunity to go and work in a big old restaurant. So I started working in like restaurant bars in Soho, and I had to like cut my hair and stuff. Oh my god! But my hair was like this. It was amazing. And yeah, so I just kept going up through the ranks. I don't think I actually spent enough time as a bartender. I kind of moved through the ranks and got to management quite quickly. I think just because I was always like, hey, and trying to be friendly and helpful all the time. I kind of wish, in hindsight, that I had spent more time focusing on bartending. I mean, I enjoy it really, but you know, I'm not like, you put me on dispense and I'm like, what the? and then yeah, so I was just basically doing that for about 10 years, and I worked in some bars, some like more cocktail-led bars like Original Sin in Stoke Newington, and I opened, I don't know if you've heard, Experimental Cocktail Club.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they opened one in East London, so I opened that, and all this kind of things, and I absolutely loved it. But I got to a point where I was like, where do I go like from here? So ideally, I wanted to go and work abroad, and I had an opportunity there, but that fell through. So I was like without work for about 3 months, and it was great fun. I was just sort of farting around about 3 months, and then I'd done a lot of work with Rekya during my roles as bartenders. In each bar, I sort of brought the brand with me because I could choose what the things were on the back shelf. Because it really spoke to me, because I love, you know, everyone loves. Have you been to Iceland?
No, sadly not.
I think everyone like wants to go, and I won a Rekya competition, and I got to go to Iceland, and I was like, this is amazing. And I remember looking at the previous brand ambassador, a guy called Joe Petch. He's a ledge, Joe P. And I remember thinking like, I want your job. I was considering like pushing him off volcano and being like, oh, sorry, I'll take a job. But yeah, and he knew that I'd worked a lot with him, and I think that's important if you're going to go down the brand ambassador way, is to choose a brand that you identify with. I think, you know, you see a few people who just go for the role rather than the brand, and I think it doesn't quite. I think people can tell when you're not invested thoroughly in the brand, and I think for me, like, Rekya really spoke to me because Iceland's cool. And yeah, and that was like 2 years ago, and now I have a pet Puffin.
Awesome.
This is where my life is now.
I mean, that's what we all need.
Exactly.
Right. So let's get then. That's great to kind of get that backstory and that kind of the idea of kind of where you've come through from. So let's get in now to this Adventurivity. Talk me through it. Talk me through the concept and how it's going to help bartenders.
Nice. So yeah, it's relatively new. Essentially, there's two sides of it. We all know that going for a walk in the woods or by an ocean somewhere, it makes you feel good, and everyone knows that. But I think by harnessing the reasons behind it, you can utilize it more so, and it kind of becomes more efficient. So if you come up against these things like, you know, anxiety and stress and, you know, feeling kind of generally underwhelmed or low self-esteem, then you can think about it in a new way and go and seek out these experiences to kind of, I don't want to sound like a hippie, but, you know, make yourself feel better. So the first side is nature. So I've done lots of research. I've read like these Bibles and things, but there's this thing called Biophilia hypothesis, and this essentially states that we as a species, we evolved in nature, yet now are more detached than ever from it. However, there are still lots of things within nature that kind of resonate with our kind of DNA, and by seeking those things out, you get back to this sort of more simpler time when you're more relaxed, if that makes sense. So essentially, like, for example, the smell of rain, you know, it kind of puts us at ease, and that's because our ancestors used to use that smell to go and find sources of water. Obviously, if it's raining on your head, you're going to be like, found it. But it's what camels use to find water in the deserts and things like that. It's called geosmin. It's like this. Do you know about geosmin?
It's not something that I'm super familiar with.
it's a funny word if you say it fast, but it's essentially in soil and in rocks and things. There's a tiny amount of oil called petrichor, and when water hits it, this geosmin, this organic compound, is released, and you can actually buy it as like a fragrance. And I've tried to incorporate it into lots of drinks to kind of get that. But it's a cool thing to use. And also in like pine trees, for example, there's a compound in the bark called pinosylvin. In other words, you shouldn't say fast, and it acts as a really, really mild sedative, but also kind of stimulates your respiratory system. So you're literally getting a breath of fresh air, and you're being calmed by this sort of experience in the woods. So without trying to sound like a hippie, a walk in the woods can really help you become more creatively, cognitively nimble. So that's one side of things, and there's a lot more details to that, which we could get into, but we'll be here for 4 hours. Are you sitting down? Are you standing up?
I'm standing, my friend. Standing office.
The other thing is adventure, right? So, well, I don't know, if I said to you, what does adventure mean to you? What would you say? Just
like pushing your boundaries and doing something different from the everyday, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, exactly. And obviously there's adventure like in the great outdoors, like going on a huge cycle ride or like swimming around the UK or whatever. But yeah, essentially it's stepping outside of your comfort zone for something new and different. I think by seeking out adventures within this kind of natural environment, it can help train bartenders to kind of get out of this funk of like being stuck in a routine, like how I was back in the day, like in this bar. I mean, even though it was great fun. And it can really help you like spur yourself forward and seek out these new opportunities, because it all starts in the same way. You get offered an opportunity, or you seek out something, be it a new job, be it a new menu concept, a new recipe, something crazy that you're like, is that going to work? And then you get going on this journey. And the Nordic people have this phrase called the Doorstep Mile, which essentially means that like the mile away from your doorstep is the hardest, because that's when, especially as humans, we always go on about like the what ifs. What if this goes wrong? And once you get past that, then you're kind of you're on the journey, and you reach these milestones. And I think it's important to remember that even like hitting rock bottom is a milestone. And often you see these great success stories of people like after they've hit rock bottom, because it's how you deal with it afterwards. And you get a lot of this kind of you get used to uncertainty, particularly if you're out in nature, because you've got things like weather or like tides coming in, or like injuries and all this kind of stuff. And you push the boundaries, and the more you do it, the more you welcome uncertainty. Is this making sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. And then you go through these milestones. And I think also when you're on an adventure, I did one earlier today, no, a few months ago. You set milestones to kind of break up the journey. And I think that practice of doing that works really well in the bartender way, because you can set like a plan, like here's my ambition. I want to be here in a year or 2 or 5 years. You set milestones, and it makes the journey seem easier to manage. You know, when you look at all these amazing influential bartenders, and you're like, how the hell am I going to get there? But I think by setting milestones, as you would on a big journey, it kind of helps break it down. So there's a lot of like correlations between the outdoors and bartending.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've got to be completely honest with you. When I read through the talking points that were sent over, I thought to myself, there's going to be so much woo and pseudoscience and stuff in here, organics that are coming from the rain, and I was like, oh, it's going to be awful, because I'm like so into... And now I'm like, oh yeah, actually, everything that makes sense, it's just in the talking points, I wasn't picking up on the right things. And I just kind of thought it was going to be this mysticism. And I know you keep saying, I don't want to say...
I did bring a tree.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Like, I need to get a tree in here.
That's it.
But yeah, I completely get what you mean as well. Like, just breaking up your normal routine is as good as anything else. But then also, if you can get out to a park, or, you know, if you live in a city centre and you can't get out to real nature, go and sit in a park, go and sit on the grass under a tree for a little while.
Mate, exactly, yeah. And most importantly, like, try and leave your phone at home, because there's one other thing. The third point is this attention restoration theory, or ART. And this states that in our environments these days, it's full of digital noise. Like, you've got emails, WhatsApp, the Snapchat filter. Oh, I'm a mouse. You got all the other things, and then you've got like traffic signals. You've got bloody adverts everywhere. It's like it's really hard for your brain to like focus on what it needs to do, particularly if you're like out and about. And it's kind of, you've got two sides of your brain. You've got your left side, which deals with all like the analytical thought and logistics and language and problem solving and things like that. And this side of your brain is completely overwhelmed by this digital noise, and it has to work its ass off to filter down to the 4 key points of like what you're doing that day. And your right side of the brain is like creativity and intuition and gut instinct, all this kind of stuff. And he's quiet in there. He's like, I've got no space here. But by going out into nature and getting away from all this kind of noise, the right side of your brain is allowed to come to the fore. And it's basically because outside of nature doesn't take any direct attention. And so, yeah, it comes to the fore and it allows you to reach like deep thought, and it can really help like break down your life. That sounds a bit weird. Break down parts of you break down to kind of help you think about where you want to get to. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of resetting and sort of analysing what you actually want to achieve, and then being able to do it because you know where you're heading.
Yeah.
Cool. So it would be remiss of me to have a Rekya guy come on and not ask you, okay, give me a drink. Give me a drink of the week for us with Rekya. Your favourite.
Amazing. My favourite one I named after him.
Okay.
You're famous again. So that's strange, isn't it? Sugarpuff McStuffin here. So in Iceland, they're very good at harnessing their environment because it's a very cold and harsh landscape. Have you seen Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I've seen some of it. I've not quite dove into it. I haven't had time. I know at some point I will.
Stay away from it, you'll be ruined. But there are dragons, and it's very hard to grow tomatoes when you've got dragons everywhere. No, it's very hard to grow anything on Iceland because it's too cold and windy, and it's a bit grim. However, by utilizing this geothermal energy, which is like the energy from the earth, they've managed to be able to grow these amazing tomatoes of all things, which is so random to find in Iceland. And so I was there once, and I walked into this greenhouse, and I was like, what the hell is this? And so we made a drink, because if you think vodka and tomatoes, you think Bloody Marys, right? But then if you think about vodka as a category, it's supposed to be pure, it's supposed to be like very natural and clean, and it's supposed to like boost flavors and things. It's very easy to overpower it with like big old herbaceous garnishes. So if you think about tomato, it's got, sweetness and acidity, but it's all very subtle. And I think they work together. The tomato helps boost the flavors in vodka, particularly Rekya makes lots of vanilla and things pop, and then the Rekya helps the tomato boost. So anyway, we made this drink called the Puffin. It's very, really easy. You get one tomato. I wish I had one. You muddle it.
Yep.
And then you add 30 mils of grapefruit juice, 20 mils of elderflower, 50 mils of Rekya, and then shake it up and then top it with soda. And it's great because you kind of get savory, bitter, sweet, sour thing going on.
Awesome. No, I actually did a twist on a Bloody Mary a while ago for a vodka brand competition. I won't mention their name because it doesn't matter for you. But I basically made a Bloody Mary using muddled and shaken tomato. You actually just got that kind of light, kind of blush look to it rather than being thick and blended and like a soup. And then we split it into 6 shooter glasses and put different levels of heat in each. So it was like a Bloody Mary roulette kind of thing.
Wow.
Which was quite good fun.
That's a great idea. Trigger part, he's nodding.
So that's awesome. I love that idea, and I'm loving that it's not just me that thought of muddling a tomato. Because it's not something you see out there a lot.
I know, when you have to do big old events for like hundreds of people, and they're like, you want us to muddle all these tomatoes? I'm like,
yeah, man.
Sorry.
Cool. So I have my kind of default questions that I go to for every interview, and all my listeners will know these kind of inside out now. From the number of podcasts that we've done, I think we must be approaching 200 shows now, something like.
Wow.
And most podcasts stop after about 6, so we've done okay. So how do you introduce yourself to people when you meet them? So do you go straight for your bartending background, the Rekya stuff, or that you're now a woo guru for
a nature dweeb?
Yeah, absolutely.
I always just say, hello, I'm Fabs. I avoid the Fabiano because people are like, Fabio, and I'm like, God, no. I don't know. I like to introduce me first rather than what I've done, because I think sometimes people get hung up on like your title and things, and then after a while I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll do Rekya as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'll just introduce myself as me. I'm Fabs.
Cool. Yeah, it's just because I know there's some people that kind of identify themselves with what they do for a living. Other people like if they play paintball every weekend, they go, I play paintball. You know, that's their thing. Or, you know, if they write in their free time.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's just interesting to see where people go with that one. Who have your inspirations in the industry been?
I mean, particularly now, as I mentioned, like with the old Instagram thing, there's so much, it's so crowded full of inspirational people. So I take inspiration from people like around the corner. I don't know if there's a guy called Rich Hunt who owns a bar called Mint Gun Club.
Okay.
And he's great because he's very down to earth. Yeah, his drinks are like unreal, but he doesn't hang his hat on that. He's very much like, I am Richard. These are my drinks. And you're like, okay, cool, I get it. But so I like to take my inspiration from sort of external sources, like the trees, like the nature and things. And I genuinely feel, if I form a question in my mind of what I want to do, I'll go outside and kind of it will be on. Oh my god, I sound like a complete hippie. Yeah, I don't know. It changes on a day-to-day basis. I'm sorry, I can't answer that one very carefully.
No, that's cool. Right, you walk into a new bar. What is the drink you order that is basically to kind of give you an idea of the bartender's level? So what's your kind of test cocktail that you would order?
Well, I guess it would have to be a martini, really, because it's, you know, it's so simple, yeah, it's so easy to balls up. And I remember that was the drink I was most scared of as a bartender, because I was like, oh my god, you know, everyone's got such preferences. However, if it is a new bar and they're a cocktail bar, they're often going to be really proud of their drinks on the menu. So I'll often go through there and be like, you know, what drinks do you like, and get their opinion. And then once you start that conversation, and then I'll go for the test after the initial, hey, like, show me what you can do kind of thing.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Cool. If you could sit at any bar in the world right now, which one would it be?
I'm going to sound like a bit of a ponce here, but I was in Madagascar earlier on this year, or last year, I can't remember. And there was a bar we were staying at, which was made out of a boat. It was unreal. I can't remember what I was drinking. Can't remember at all. But I remember sitting there by the ocean, and I could see these humpback whales, like, jumping out of the sea in the distance. And I was like, yep, it's good. So I would go there right now.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool choice. And then the last one, and this might come back to the martini that you've already mentioned, but if you could only drink one cocktail for the rest of your life, you're only allowed one cocktail, what is that cocktail?
Something salty.
Ooh.
I love the whole super. I mean, margarita is probably a margarita. I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like no agave, keep that out of it. Just like tequila, lime, and the other thing, whatever it is, orange. Okay, no, not that. No, I think Bloody Mary.
Bloody Mary?
Yeah, I love them. Can have them any time of day.
Awesome.
Scratch the margarita thing because I forgot what was in it.
No worries. Is there anything else that you want to point out for us? Have you got anywhere that you want to direct people? I know you said you're kind of not in that social bubble all the time, but do you have an Instagram that you want to point people to? Or
oh yeah, absolutely. I have two.
Okay.
Which is horrendous. I'm like, get off Instagram. I have two. One is Fab Sting, as in like Fab, and then Sting, and the other one is nature_dweeb.
Nice.
But in regards to these kind of talks, so the whole ambassador team for William Grant & Sons, we're running this kind of this new educational platform, I guess, called Unwrapped, and it's all about the other side of bartending, because you know everyone has access to these brand trainings. I mean, you can like Google it and things, but we've all kind of taken an aspect of our personal life that kind of got us to where we are, or helped us through some sort of problems back in the day. Or there's things like photography and social media management, all this kind of stuff. And we are teaming up and visiting cities next year, and sort of giving these talks in like kind of seminar day, and we do like bar takeovers, and it's the real good luck. So I think people should definitely keep their eyes out for Unwrapped.
Awesome. Will you be coming to Birmingham?
I hope so. Yeah, I'm actually coming to Birmingham on the 19th of December.
Okay, might catch you.
Yeah, do. Come for lunch somewhere.
Awesome.
We'll sort it out.
Cool. Well, thank you, Fabs. Thanks for your time. And guys, go and check out his Instagram accounts that he doesn't want you to spend any time on.
It's true.
Cool. Thanks very much, man.
Thanks, dude. Have a good one.
Appreciate it. Cheers.
Bye bye.